So first, thank y'all so much for having us here. Just a little history on where we got to where we are. And that's going to fill you in a little more uh, the jail situation and why GPS is so widely used today. Uh, but my fight in this started with the death in St. Francisville. Miss Peggy Rickern was murdered by her husband after stalking. He stalked her for 2 weeks. Nothing was reported to the court. He shot her, killed her, shot her friend, and then killed himself. Long story short, we worked with the DA. We were able to get that provider indicted. However, the First Circuit Court overturned that indictment, saying that there was no law that said a provider actually had the monitor. So it made me very angry. And 8 kids, I've been to the Capitol on 8 field trips, and I knew that's where our bills get written. So I went there not knowing anyone, not knowing exactly what to do, and kept being told to find an instrument. Uh, but even with the deaths of Mr. Yeager, Ms. Thibodeau, Mr. Carter, Ms. Beasley, no one in our capital was looking at saving the lives of people being murdered by unsupervised offenders wearing ankle monitors. So we went back to our office and we actually wrote a bill. It was adopted by Timmy Kerner, and it passed both the House and the Senate with no objection. The bill did 4 things. It regulated the type of equipment that can be used in our state. It put a standard reporting process for providers. They have to report the violations now. And it made it where it was 12 hours. Working with the Attorney General last session, we actually changed that. You do still have 12 hours, but once you realize it's a true violation, you must report that violation within 30 minutes. And then there was we separated the manufacturer from the provider. That was the problem when the Domino's, Mr. Yeager, the Domino's delivery driver, got murdered. The only thing we got was a circus of a triangle of it's the sheriff, it's the judge, it's the manufacturer. No one ever got held accountable for Mr. Yeager's murder. So we separated the provider from the manufacturer. Manufacturers make the equipment, providers are the one responsible to watch. And then the last thing it did was it actually required a punishment. Any provider that intentionally withholds the reporting will get fined up to $10,000 per report, get kicked out of the state of Louisiana for 5 years, and can actually serve a year in jail per report. That was very important to us. We wanted to make sure. However, when Peggy Beasley was killed, the Times-Picayune put out an article called Wild Wild West GPS. And it was a great title because that's where we were. Before this time, you would see people wearing ankle monitors committing murders and robberies, but they never mentioned who the provider was. Some of those providers are still monitoring people today. But Santa Quilla in St. Francisville actually fixed that. And now the providers are being mentioned. So where we are now is we began the Association of Supervised Ankle Monitoring Providers. When the Times-Picayune put out this release of information to all 64 parishes, they wanted to know how many providers there were, who were they supervising, and how many violation reports did they have. Only 6 could respond. So we have the law in place, but we know there's still a problem. One of the parts of the law is that every parish has to have a list of certified providers. Being in the industry, we know 64 different registries of people being monitored on supervision does not help our community, and it does not help our law enforcement. So we got together and we built the offender management system. The offender management system is a place where the providers go in and they register as providers. Right now, there's no licensing. And there's no way of telling if they're convicted felons. They don't have to hold their paperwork. You don't know who they're supervising. And it's a horrible situation that we're in right now because as a licensed bail agent for the past 20 years, I have to go through a background check. I have to hold my paperwork for 10 years. The state police can walk in my office at any time and look at my paperwork. I have to do continuing education. All of these things, and there's a list of bondsmen that the community can see who the bondsmen are in the state, and that's not available when it comes to providers of GPS. But no different than a bondsman going to the jail and taking custody. As a provider of GPS, we also do that. And so what we're working on right now is that licensing and registration part. The offender management system requires them to register. It also requires them to put in the manufacturing equipment that they're using. That equipment is also legislated now. When we wrote it, that's one part I left off, I'm sorry, but when we wrote the bill, we said if your equipment does not tell the provider that there's a strap tamper within 3 minutes and a victim exclusion within 4 minutes, then it's not legally able to be used in our state. Um, Up until that point, and still because there's no registry, anybody in this room can go on Google, do ankle monitor, buy an ankle monitor to connect just to your cell phone, barely work, show up at a jail and put it on somewhere, with no accountability and no responsibility. And I'm sorry, for lack of a better word, it was just asinine that we had this going on. So through the offender management system, once the provider is registered, they're able to put their offenders into the system. And they put everything from the court that ordered them, who the bonding company is, what the conditions are, what their confinement address is. All of this stuff is put into there. The minute they hit submit, an email goes out to the clerk, the jail, the court, the DA, the protected victim, and the bonding company. And it's also available for all of law enforcement across the state. Once that person is in the system, they're in there, everybody can view that offender and what those conditions are. There's even a public view for the public and the media to be able to see. If an offender receives a alert, the provider can go in, investigate that alert, and put it through the system either as a non-violation or violation. If it's a violation, an email immediately goes to the court, the DA, the bonding company, and the protected victim. And then when they disenroll, the same thing. What we want to make sure doesn't happen is 64 different registries. We want to make sure that our law enforcement partners that are already trained in using it, and I can give you story after story and names that you will know. We'll get into Tyree Quinn and the difference between Tyree Quinn and Matthew Allen. Tyree Quinn was the I-10 shooter on Lundy Gras that killed 3 people. He was on an ankle monitor. Within an hour and a half, they knew who he was, and they had him in custody. Matthew Allen, same day, killed someone in Lafayette. A month and a half later, he was arrested in Baton Rouge with the gun used in the Lafayette murder. It took them another 3 weeks to find out who was supervising that ankle monitor to put him at the location of the murder. The amount of evidence that was lost, the FBI was still able to charge Mr. Allen in those murders. However, the difference was in New Orleans, where the offender management system is being used, law enforcement knew who their murder was. They convicted him based on the GPS data. They didn't have any eyewitnesses. The only thing they had was the GPS data and 1 dash cam. And he is now convicted of those 3 murders. That is the difference. That is the game changer that the offender management system brings. It is something that you guys need to know what is going on, because we are at a point right now where we're working very closely with the Attorney General's office, Troop NOLA coming in, and the Attorney General's office being very here in the city of New Orleans is really helping. In fact, we leave here to go to a meeting with them to see about making sure the offender management system becomes part of the new software that's being built for your criminal justice system. So Matt's gonna show you some things, and he has a little more history on how we got to where we are right now with our jail size and those things.
I'm only gonna be a second. Susie doesn't have an introduction for me because I'm just Bill's husband. Make you feel better? So, I'm not used to speaking to a friendly crowd in Orleans Parish, to be honest. Uh, Everything that we do started in Orleans Parish. I came here in the Navy 33 years ago, and I was only supposed to be here for 3 years, and I'll never leave. So New Orleans is different. New Orleans is a place that absolutely likes to dig its own holes, and it's made a mess out of itself. In 2005, we had a 7,000 bed jail, and Bodie was running the machine over there. By 2014, they had shrunk that jail to 3,400 beds. And then we brought in a group called the Institute of Justice, and we started giving them a few $1,000,000 a year to bring in a risk assessment algorithm. And they would use this risk assessment tool to determine who should stay and who should go from jail. We ended up with King Scott, the Mother's Day shooter, shot 19 people at a parade in New Orleans here. And the Vera Institute of Justice, on a scale of 0 to 24, scored him a 6, low risk to reoffend, eligible to be released. Up until the day I received that risk assessment, no one had ever seen one. They were hidden. The city wouldn't let anybody see them. I know that somebody inside the machine snuck that out to us, and I released it to the press. And that began the unraveling of the Vera Institute. But here we are today. We have a situation where New Orleans has a serious crime problem, and if it wasn't for a lot of what Jeff Landry did in his criminal justice special session, we would still have a serious crime problem. The people that we fought and defeated, they actually won because they got us to a 1,280 bed jail. We have 2,500 violent crimes a year on average in Orleans Parish. If you catch all of them, you have nowhere to put any of them. So if I had my way, we'd build the jails back and we'd get rid of the ankle monitor programs. I wasn't supposed to be an ankle monitors. I was an avionics tech. I fixed the electronic systems on aircraft for the military. So I understood GPS. I taught GPS in the military. And when Gutsman started to unravel with his program in 2014, I got word that the Vera Institute was trying to take it over. So I used my experience in hunting humans and ankle monitor and GPS to actually take the ankle monitors myself. And we built this program. And it has been an uphill battle against storms inside this city like crazy. But yet it's the only city in the entire country that does it right. And we, to this day, Bill passed the bill last year, and we have a group of judges that can't stand her in Orleans Parish because she's actually doing the right thing. We've had them lash out at us. We've had them call us names. We've had them treat us terribly because a lot of what we're doing puts them in check. The offender management system, we had a case on a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Marana. It was last November, shot 4 people in the French Quarter. We're part of that case. We're testifying next month in it. They're going to convict him because the ankle monitor data matches perfectly all of the video data that shows he did this. The problem is, for us to get the truth out, we had to make Leon Roche hate us. This gentleman was put on probation for a violent crime. Should have been put in jail. He was in our program. He enrolled in our program. He was in our program for 60 days. In those 60 days, he had 45 violations. We sent every one of those violations to the judge. Normally, we can arrest the people ourselves. In this case, we couldn't because it was a probation case and he was not released on a bond. The probation officers had asked for a revocation and the judge denied it. Just let the guy keep running around. On the last day, on the 60th day, he did that shooting and he killed people. Within 34 minutes, still working with NLPD, they had him in custody. They had all of the evidence they needed to put this man in prison, and he will go to prison. The problem is the judges lashed out at it because our system showed who the problem was. It showed that it was the judge doing this, and they hated that. And the way we did it, hope that gets back. Okay. We simply put a media page together for the news media, for the public. And we said, nobody can hide the facts from you. And they hated this. When I did this, I became public enemy #1 in the city of New Orleans. This is a public graph that anybody can see, and it shows you every single division of court. And the pie size tells you the violations in each division. Now, just because it's a big piece of pie doesn't mean that the judge is doing something wrong. They just may have a lot of people in there. clicking on the pie, you can actually just click on any of them. You can actually get a list of every single person. Now you can see, if you see the same name over and over and over, it's because the judge is ignoring the violation reports. This makes it impossible to not know who's at fault. You only have three people in an ankle program that can be wrong. It could be the offender, the guy wearing it, the provider, the guy providing it, or the judge, the guy that ordered it. And if you can put anything together to show exactly who it is, you would think everybody would be happy. The judges in New Orleans are livid over this. They hate this, okay? Just so you understand, go back to the other guy, to the bar guy. Just so you understand, this is your parish. And I'm not used to speaking to friendly people in Orleans. Usually when I'm telling you this, you guys are hating me. You don't want to see this. But this, just so you understand, under Gusman's program, when we took over in 2014, your taxpayers in this city, you paid $1.2 million a year for what? 45 people. 45. Currently in New Orleans, we have just shy of 400 people, and it costs you $0. We have 100% full arrest powers. We can absolutely intervene, and we can stop whatever's going on. We don't have the ability to make excuses and blame the judge because we built the system that's transparent. What does that mean? 400 people from January 1st through now. How many people running around on bracelets? That's 47,430 individual alerts. An ankle monitor triggered an alert when they left the house, when they went near something, when they went somewhere they weren't supposed to be. So that's a lot of alerts. And you have to make sure that every single one of these people that are on ankle monitor are following the rules. One thing that nobody ever tells anybody is this: no ankle monitor provider will release this information because this is how you figure out who's doing it right or who's doing it wrong. And the normal position is they don't do it right. Of these 47,000 alerts, only 10,000 are really violations. Again, you can click on the violations. And it shows you a list of each violation. You can look at the individual who violated. You can see what it was they did. This is available to the public. This allows the victim to keep track of who it is that's on ankle monitor and stuff like that. So we built this system for the first point, to make sure that the public understands. But the city needs this program. You have two choices in that city. You can rebuild your jail, refund your jail, and let the same people that messed it up run it, or you can expand this program. This needs to be law. The normal position for an ankle monitor provider is there is no law, there is no regulation, there is no responsibility. There's a ton of money, and they make a lot of money doing nothing. I'm going to leave it with this. And we have three entities in the city of New Orleans that go to jails and get people out. Three different entities walk into the jail with a piece of paper. They hand it to the jail, and they are given a person from that jail. The bail bondsman is one. The bail bondsman is highly regulated. They have to have insurance. They have to have schooling. They have to have clean backgrounds. Ankle monitor providers are another. They are not required to do anything. They don't even give money to the jail. They just go get a person. It could be anybody. You could be on drugs. You could be a felon. You could be a gangster, and you can use ankle monitors. The last one, and this is something that the city of New Orleans needs to pay very close attention to. It's called organized cash bail providers. Trump just spoke on this, on these cashless bail things. You guys understand, in New Orleans, we defeated cashless bail in 2014. That was all I was doing. This is how I ended up here fighting the Vera Institute. But it is still a cancer across the country now. Organized cash bail providers are dark money funds. These are money funds that are donations that are given to these groups. They use this cash money to go to the jail and get people out. The lady that runs the Orleans Parish, New Orleans Safety and Freedom Fund, is a lady named Montrell Carmouche. She spent 20 years in federal prison on racketeering and conspiracy charges for drugs. And she now runs getting people out of jail through a program that nobody knows where the money comes from. The way it works, you give money to a jail, whether it's a bond, which is insurance, or cash. When the case ends, the money comes back to the person that gave it to them. And my question for the city of New Orleans is, how do you know if this 20-year federal inmate is putting the money in her pocket or back in this fund? And it's something that the people should be concerned with. If you go to the New Orleans Safety and Freedom Fund, they call themselves bail disruptors. They are very open in their goal to eliminate money bail from the city of New Orleans. And the judges would accommodate it. They would graciously and happily release every violent criminal to the street without supervision if they could get away with it. So you have to be very well.
They're not from here.
Well, first of all, most of your judges are from other states, but understand we have a different way of thinking. We are people that believe in protecting ourselves. We are people that believe in if there's something going on in our neighborhood, we stand in our front yards and protect our yards. This city is not that way. This city understands the power comes from protection. So they need you afraid. The longer you're afraid, the more you're willing to give up your freedoms.
Yeah.
That is the difference. Because when we go to St. Tammany, it's a much different environment. When we work in Jefferson, when we go to Homa, when we go to any of these other areas, it's always the same. When you walk into a hugely Democrat city, their agenda is different. They rule you through fear. And you can't be afraid if you're protected. And that is why you see a stronger criminal justice presence in conservative communities than you do in these Orleans Parish stuff. Let's look at what changed New Orleans. What changed New Orleans was Jeff Landry bringing in 2 sets of state troopers who actually act like police officers. They will chase you. They will search you. They will arrest you. And this is counter to everything Orleans has done over the last number of years. I've witnessed them completely take away the police's ability. You understand in municipal court in New Orleans, everybody in here, you have hairdressers, you have professional licenses, you like to fish. If you don't go to municipal court, take care of your case, you lose those. But that's not who's going to municipal court. The people that are skipping court, municipal court, don't care about driver's licenses or fishing licenses. And here's why that's important. In 2018, Orleans Parish passed an ordinance that ended the ability of NOPD to arrest a single misdemeanor. Then they went one step farther and they banned the ability of the municipal judges to remand a misdemeanor, which means if I don't go to court and I totally ignore the judge and just completely ignore them, they can't do anything. They cannot arrest me. They can pull me over with 3,700 warrants for my arrest, and they're all city charges. All they can do is give me a summons to appear. They have no ability to arrest me, and that is because they needed to justify tearing down 66% of your jail. That is what the Bear Institute put this city through, and they were very destructive to us. But they said no more arrests for misdemeanors. You cannot arrest a misdemeanor in the city of New Orleans.
What happens if it's the criminal profile? Why is that the judge?
When I have a person who is violating consistently the judge's order, the Orleans Parish judges consistently order the person off bond. But there is no reason for this. There's no. Angel Harris ran on the flip the bench campaign and she won. Her goal was to make sure nobody is held pre-trial. They believe that everybody should be released pre-trial. This idea of this, it's an all eggs in one basket mentality. They don't understand that each individual is separate and different. But you have a Nandy Campbell's from New York. She's an activist who came here to do this intentionally. Sorry, Susan Hudson is from Philly. She was an activist. She came here intentionally to do what she's doing.
Yeah.
That serves, again, we have 2 different mentalities in this country. One says a self-protective mentality. One believes in the protection of their self. We will do it ourselves. And another believes in being protected. In Orleans Parish, a lot of the power in the criminal justice system is derived by keeping the citizens afraid. If you demand protection, they have control. And that's really what this is. You literally have judges, Leon Rose said, if it wasn't for putting them on the news, he don't change. We had to put them on the news to make it change. And remember, every single time we correct these people, he gets beat up in Orleans Parish. So it's a hostile environment for us.
So just to end, there's a few things that we're looking at. There's a few things that we're looking at right now legislatively. I have submitted a bill for licensing. Our request is that providers and organized cash fund bond depositors be licensed under the LGI. We have taken away the apprenticeship program from that because a bondsman has to work in a bail office for 3 months before they can apply. While these two organizations, these two programs, they won't be writing bail in the sense with the arrest powers and so forth. So we've removed that. However, what we've kept in is a background check to make sure convicted felons aren't getting other people out of jail. The pre-licensing and the continuing education, and the fact that they have to make their paperwork available to law enforcement if they're investigated. Those are three things that we think are very important. Not only does it allow us to know who the providers are, but it allows our law enforcement and our Department of Insurance to supervise what's going on. The other thing is this offender management system. We want to make sure that the providers have to register. We're not there asking for money from the state. This is a paid for by the provider. It's a $250 annual fee, which is waived if they for the first year if they self-enroll. And we've actually reduced it to $150 for the first year for the ones the court makes enroll. And it's only $10 per offender when they enroll them. So they charge between $150 and $300 just as an enrollment fee. So the $10 would put them in the system, allow law enforcement to see them, automatically send the email to every entity in the court system that is required by law to receive them. And it also allows us to go out to the law enforcement agencies that haven't had the training and train them on how to get into the system so that they can see it. That's two parts of the legislation that we're working on. One of the things I want to add is because of what Jeff Landry has done in the Capitol when it comes to crime, I sat in court about 3 weeks ago, 3 convictions, all 3 totaling about 25 years in jail, all 25 years suspended. So they got found guilty, they got sentenced to 25 years, and they all got released the same day. So I am working with the Attorney General's office so we can look into this and see what we can't do legislatively. Yes, ma'am.
Think about woman they pull someone kid or juvenile or of age, young adult, get arrested and under their parents or family members that have the accessibility to line them out ahead of you, they're going to be the 25, 30 years.
Okay, this is only going to apply to anyone that goes to the jail to post 3 or more bonds a year. So if grandma's just going getting grandson out, it's not an issue.
Okay.
We don't want to take away the fact that a pastor or a grandmother or a mother can help their child. We don't want to take that away. But we have organized cash depositors that are taking Soros money donations. They're showing up at the jail and they're bonding people out that they don't know. They have no accountability. They have no responsibility. I've gotten calls from mothers saying, we wanted him to sit because we were trying to get him a bed at rehab. But the Operation Restoration did the bond. Now he's on the street and we can't find him because he doesn't have a place to go. When you go to a bondsman, anybody who's ever been to a bondsman, they ask you everything. They know who your mama is, who your grandma is, who your aunt is, what car you drive, where you lived the last 5 years of your life. They know everything. Organized cash depositors know nothing. They literally get a call from our public defender's office and says this person needs a bond. They show up at the jail and they do the bond. They don't talk to mom. They don't talk to grandmother. It is a crazy situation that we're in. And Georgia actually passed the bill that did exactly what we're asking the state of Louisiana to do. Senator Barrow had a bill, Senate Bill 87 last session. And it was to put organized cash depositors as a name in our law. It was just saying they received notice of missed court dates. And that's fine. I support anybody that puts their name on a bond to receive notice. However, they were already getting that notice because their names were on the bond. So I was the only one there. I testified at every committee and I cautioned our legislators before we put a person's this type of entity into our law, let's regulate them and get them licensed. The bill passed and Governor Landry vetoed it. His office reached out to me, asked me for a report. Because I testified and I wrote a report and he vetoed that bill, and did not let it go through. So I have written a bill. I have submitted it to Representative Billio and to the AG's office on the licensing requirements. Any questions? Yes, ma'am. The only thing I can tell you is Massey was in our program and he cut off his ankle monitor within 30 minutes of being released from the jail, and we had him in custody in
Less than that.
less than an hour. But that's the only thing I can tell you. Yeah, I'm sure, and Matt might be able to add more to that. I'm sure more is gonna come out now that they've all been caught, but
And how did you act? I mean, monitor.
that's his job. I'm gonna let him talk about that. I do it behind the computer.
I want to say,
Yes.
okay, so
One question at a time. Answer your.
I'm gonna answer her question
Yeah.
first. Sorry. Listen, all I can say to how we caught him is, I've been doing this for 33 years. And I also have 8 kids, so, hide and seek's pretty easy for us. But, listen, all I can tell you about Hudson is you have an activist lawyer from Philly with 0 law enforcement training, and she won by using division politics, by making Guston look like he didn't like gay women. I mean, you ended up with a woman who was wholly unqualified for the job. Her first act as sheriff was to change the name of inmate to resident. Okay, and her biggest declaration, and look, room full of women. I have no problem with women. But to say that 80+% of your jail is staffed by women is a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay, I am sorry. Okay, there's ways. I agree with women in the military. I'm ex-military. I agree with women in law enforcement. But to announce that 80+% of your staff in the jail is women is a mistake.
Yeah,
So she just doesn't know what she's doing.
yeah.
And so, to your question about illegal
He's out of there,
immigration.
right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
we started with meeting with ICE and giving them access to the system, and we actually added a line for them that says country alert. So when someone is enrolled, they get an email and they know. However, there was a bill that came out last year, last session, that talked about finding sheriffs, guilty and charging them with malfeasance in office. I testified on those bills too because I had names. And even when no one wanted to mention names, I went up and I said and named the defendants that were released from the Orleans Parish jail that were wanted by ICE. We know this because ICE called us and said, hey, they're on an ankle monitor. We need to get them into custody, and we would work with ICE to make sure that these people were quickly taken off the street and put back into ICE custody.
I just want to add something on the illegal alien issue, just so you understand. In Orleans Parish, sanctuary city, they won't tell law enforcement. ICE couldn't get any information, so they started working through us. We would go get them. We would then meet ICE at our office, and they would take them from our office. But there was another obstacle that was in the way. Bail agents would not do a bond on an illegal alien because if immigration took him and deported him, the bondsman had to pay the bond. That was not an excuse. Them being deported back to their country was not a reason to have that bond set aside. So a bondsman isn't going to write a $10,000 or $20,000 loss just to help ICE. So what the bail industry did last session was we went and asked the legislature if they would get rid of that part of the law, where if they are deported, that the bondsman did their job. And the legislature agreed and they repealed that part of the law. So now bail agents are defeating the agenda of these cities by going in, bonding these people out and delivering them to immigration. And that was the bail industry that did that, so.
That's one.
I have. For Jeff Landry, are doing all his stuff,
they started reporting that crime was going down in the. And is that how they categorize? This is the last question.
So look, this is what I'm gonna say. I'm friends with Raphael. I like Raphael at the Metropolitan Crime Commission, but until New Orleans starts to release their unfounded calls numbers, you're never gonna know the true nature of crime in the city. You have about 45 minutes for super violent crime, time to take for the police to get there. Okay, it could be 2 or 3 days. If it was just your car getting broken into. We had an office on Tulane across from the criminal courthouse. In my last year there, I was there 30 years. We left because of crime across from the courthouse. 3 cars in my parking lot got broken into and had to stop right across the street from the courthouse. And not one of the people called the police. They said there's just no sense in it because they'll never show up until you can show your unfounded calls. They can't just show murder or mayhem. They have to say, when they showed up at the call scene, was anybody there? Yes or no? And if it's no, that doesn't mean a crime didn't get committed. That means people got sick of standing there and nobody showed up. Your crime numbers are skewed terribly. And then the last thing I'll say on that is understand that, when you shoot somebody in the city of New Orleans, is that attempted murder? No, it's not. It's aggravated battery.
Yeah.
Okay, they will not charge you with attempted murder in the city because it is a higher violence crime. They reclassify terribly in Orleans Parish to lower the actual. Look, if I run up on you with a gun and I take your purse, that is armed robbery. That's not simple robbery. Okay, that's armed robbery, but they will classify it as simple robbery. And these are the tools that they use, not just in New Orleans, but in every Democrat city in America to mess with their numbers. The truth is, crime was off the charts. It was getting way worse, and nothing changed that until Landry showed up. When he showed up, he fixed it, and he fixed it by putting his police on the scene.
As far as the games they play with that, I just want to say one thing. The guy in Kentucky, you killed the little boy, stabbed him in the head so bad that the knife bent. And then he assaulted his family. He got not guilty for reason of insanity for the murder, but he got charged for the assault. And then they let him go because all of those things together said that he was not a violent offender.
Well, if you look at,
How
Noah
was that not a
Hansard's,
violent offender?
Noah Hansard's case with Tata Say and, Cruz Matu. It's the same thing. Tata Say was there, but he got found not guilty. And so it's the same thing everywhere. And it's not just the Louisiana problem. The GPS problem is nationwide.
Yeah.
And we are working very closely with our Attorney General and our governor to make sure that Louisiana leads the way in keeping people protected.
God bless you.
What y'all are doing. It's amazing to see how the Lord's working behind the scenes and these wonderful things that are happening. Little by little, we're gonna win. I feel like we're winning. It's just little by little. We just have to keep pushing.
That's how they did it, right?
Pushing.
They did it.
Right.